Can you translate values into value? Suhit Anantula is working with entrepreneurs and the city of Adelaide, Australia, to do just that. As a strategy designer, he's creating a unifying vision using the same innovation and design tools that companies use. Suhit, thank you for being here today. Your work focuses on designing for impact. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. Good to be here. My focus is what I would call about how to use design and design thinking, but for creating a better world. I call it Humanomics, the combination of humans and how we can create their better lives, but also business. So that combination of business design for humans is where I focus on.
Can you give us an example of a project you've worked on recently?
Sure. So we ran with the city of Adelaide an incubator for social and environmental startups. So the goal was, how do we create a better society, but from a point of view of creating startups. So this was a 90-day program. We went out and brought in about 55 different startups together, took them through multiple processes, then worked with about 13 of them over 90 days. And we use basically a 4-step process, understand, innovate, validate, and what's your game plan after that. And we took all of these guys into the same process over 90 days.
And this was sponsored by the city?
Correct. So the city of Adelaide is trying to figure out what does it mean for the city to be enabling the citizens to have a better life. And part of this is actually not just providing infrastructure, but actually providing the kind of organizations that we need to solve challenges that actually the city and the government cannot solve. So they have a vision around smart city, green, et cetera, that all cities talk about. But more importantly is, rather than they doing it, how do you enable those startups to actually solve those problems?
So it sounds like a very innovative approach to think about how to invest in the city of the future. So first of all, it's very brave for a city to say, we can't solve all those problems. Why don't we invite some new kinds of people to come in and help us imagine what this city could be? Tell us a little bit about some of the entrepreneurs and their experience of this project.
Sure. So it's a very wide range. We have people from 20-year-olds to 60-plus-year-olds. We have an ex-pastor whose focus is on mindfulness, to people who care about bikes and how do you create a community around bikes and create social enterprises there, to creating a next generation lab around carbon neutral focus. So City of Adelaide has actually gone for a focus on being the first city in the world to be carbon neutral by 2030 or 2040. So this one of the projects was on that. So there's a whole range of people working on this. And I think the key challenge there was that there were a lot of people coming with what I call values, strong values, and that's why they're in this process, right? So my focus was, let's not worry about your vision. I get your vision. But how do you then go back to value? Creating and capturing value. So this combination of values and value is a very interesting dynamic. So we designed the program around value, so value creation, value capture, because we already knew that people came with values, and it's actually helping them kind of make the transition from values to value.
This sounds like the City of Adelaide may be one of the first to have a massive transformative purpose that guides its actions. So really connecting all of these different stakeholders together on a shared vision based on values. That's a very different way to think about building a city.
Yeah, I mean I've always told the city, I think you guys don't realize how far ahead you are in actually enabling this to happen. And more importantly, it's changing the thinking and the mindset of not people inside the organization, but also in the entire city. Because what this has enabled is not just the startups to come out and understand why business is a force of good. How can you actually do that? But for people to see a legitimate reason for a social startup to be actually the way of the future. And I think we are a long way before we can create the Warby Parkers of the world that we have here, but I think it's a start towards that kind of focus.
It also sounds like it's a great way for entrepreneurs to want to stay in that city. So often cities help start ideas and then people migrate to other areas. Are you seeing people look to the City of Adelaide for continuing support?
So one of the large visions is, what should be the role of Adelaide in the 21st century? And I think we strongly believe that social innovation, social capital should be the role of Adelaide. how does a million-plus city make its own role in Adelaide? What it should sound like, look like, feel like? And what is amazing is there's 800-plus cities around the world who are like Adelaide. So if we can actually do something in Adelaide, we can actually then export it to 800 cities around the world. So that's been the way we've been thinking. And it's not just the city of Adelaide, it's like a larger community conversation here. And we believe this is the start to that. If you can get the best startups in the social space, environmental space, working in Adelaide, building in Adelaide, testing for the world, and scaling for the world, I think we have something amazing there.
That's really inspiring. Can you tell me a little bit about the leadership behind this project?
The city of Adelaide is being led by a mayor who's actually an entrepreneur himself, a business person, and is really strongly kind of moving the city and his vision towards this future where we have to be doing very different things than what we are doing now. But also trying to be very open about how to. He's a big supporter of this program. He's come through everything from the launch to the end to crowdfunding programs we have run. Everything he's been part of that. But also we need to look at the city officials, right? So it's a very fascinating. I'm actually working with the well-being part of the city.
The well-being part of the city.
So this sits under a team which focuses on well-being of the city. So they're being supported by the entrepreneurial team in the city of Adelaide. But my main interaction is the well-being and resilience part. And if you can think about that this is not being framed as not just, of course, jobs and all that, which is important, but how is the well-being of the city being better off by enabling these startups to be actually delivering what they're trying to do here. And funnily enough, it didn't go like this, but when I finished the program and I started ticking off all the things that these startups were doing, they aligned so well with the vision and strategy of the city. It was not designed for it because we selected the right people and the right teams, et cetera, but it goes to show that you can have a great vision, but the pathway towards that shouldn't be, kind of designed at the start. We have to kind of explore, open up, and then enable others to do it.
So you created clarity on what you were looking for, the ultimate outcome, but you gave them autonomy and freedom to work within that in order to see how they might get there.
Yeah, I mean, we have 55 startups apply. Doesn't mean we take all of them based on what we are looking for. For example, there was a startup which focused on solving kitchen waste by not sending them to the dump, but repurposing them for somebody else who can't afford a new kitchen. Okay, but that was, of course, fits very well with carbon neutral and all that, but we didn't pitch carbon neutral, if you know what I mean. So we were not pitching those, we were just saying, look, we are here to support you as an entrepreneur, to help you and enable you to build businesses that you care for and the communities that you care for. And you know what? They ultimately find the right place.
So you really focused on that values, as you said earlier. So focusing on the values of the entrepreneur in order to create, capture, and scale value elsewhere.
Correct.
And it sounds like it's had a huge ecosystem effect that you couldn't have possibly predicted.
No, and I think it's a long game. I think we need to do it over 10 years to actually see the larger change. But exactly, that's where it's going. It's become common language. And what's beautiful now is that from startups, now we are working in a very similar fashion with social impact organizations. Because what they are seeing, and the Australian context as policy changes are making people to start reimagining what a not-for-profit should be, why we need more B Corps, and how do we actually combine them to create new business models. And we are having huge interest from the social impact space. Like, we want to learn how to do this. So we are now running another accelerator program for them. And the same idea is, how do we scale this? How do we work with tens and hundreds of teams to change their mindset, give them the right tools and the skills and the methodology to continuously create social enterprises within the organizations?
Suhit, we have a tremendous global community around the world. Singularity touches hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom work in public policy and governments. What advice would you have to them listening to this story?
So one of my big heroes is Peter Drucker. And Drucker said a long time back, and I think it's still true, that if there's one thing we can focus on is making government more entrepreneurial. He says if you just take that and focus on it for 25 years, I think we can have a better life for everyone. I think that's what I'm follow on.
So making more entrepreneurial.
Government more entrepreneurial. I think that's the key. Is why should only startups be entrepreneurial and large organizations to be entrepreneurial? We need government to be entrepreneurial. And what does it mean, right? It means that we focus on the customer. It means we have better user experience. It means that we have business models that are scalable. It means that we use exponential technology. It means all of those things that are true for a corporate. It should be true for government.
So that gets back to that mind shift you were talking about. So how do we change our minds of government just being focused on delivering certain pieces of an infrastructure, and instead for them to be thinking as an enabler?
As an enabler, but also as changing the way they work. I think these things just don't happen. Like, we can't just tell people, hey, you need to think differently. I think you need to work differently, and that's what makes the thinking different. And what we've been trying to do is, how do you take business design as a field and move it to policy design? So when we say policy design, I think, at least in Australia, the whole idea has been that everybody gets product design, everybody gets UX design, we get service design. But policy design was a kind of a different concept. So the interesting is that strategy and business design has so many tool sets and skill sets that you can bring to co-designing multi-stakeholder, multi-party challenges. That is what policy design is. And the beauty is future of work, technology changing, and all of that. I think the governments get it now. What they don't get it is, what does it mean to work in that context? Right? That's where I think this is beautiful, is actually enabling people to do things differently. So one of the projects that we work with is the Department of Employment, which is like the Department of Labor here. And their role is to, of course, understand how do we enable people to have better jobs in the future. But they also understand that the future of work is going to be different. You know, what does the Uberization of the economy mean? Right? These are important trends, but how do you then translate those trends into policy that is valuable to people? That's where we are trying to show up.
And it sounds like, from listening to these examples, that one of the most important things they can do is ask the right questions.
Ask the right questions, absolutely, and ask the right people. So when government does research, they talk to the representatives of the citizens. So you talk to peak bodies, you talk to not-for-profits, you talk to businesses, you talk to research organizations. But very few times, people in policy-making roles go out and talk to the user.
The citizen.
The citizen. Who are you? What do you care for? What's your life ambition, right? So that's what we've been doing, is trying to say, you as a policymaker, we prepare them, give them some tips, go with them, and just say, let's start talking to people.
Wonderful. Suhit, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Lisa.